He stood across the street, one hand shoved deep in the pocket of a faded army jacket, the other sleeve pinned neatly to his side, empty. The early winter wind swept through Main Street, tugging at Christmas decorations and sending a flurry of brown leaves tumbling past his boots. The cafe was just as he remembered. Warm lights, fogged windows, and her silhouette inside, behind the counter, pouring coffee like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. He didn't cross, didn't wave, didn't even breathe. A couple exited, holding hands, brushing past him without a glance. Their laughter rose, then vanished behind them like smoke. Inside, she laughed too, with someone, not him. He turned slightly, as if to walk away, then froze. The last time he saw her, she had cried into his chest and whispered, "Promise me you'll come back." He had, in a way, but not whole. Not the way she'd remember, not the way he wanted to be remembered. If you believe love should survive war wounds, the visible ones and the ones we never speak of, type "still standing" in the comments. Hit like to honor those who return to silence and subscribe to veterans and heroes' stories, where the ones we left behind sometimes come back, changed, but still worthy. His name was Caleb Ross, 27 years old, Army Infantry, 3rd Deployment. He'd been home for 11 days and hadn't told a soul outside his mother. She'd hugged him tightly, looked at the empty sleeve, and didn't say a word. That was all he wanted. No pity, no sermons. He had come back different, not just because of the missing arm, lost below the shoulder after an IED tore through his Humvee near Kandahar, but because of what else was missing. Noise, purpose, certainty, and most of all, Emily. Emily Jennings. Small town girl, big laugh, bigger heart. Worked at Brew and Bloom, the little cafe that still used mismatched mugs and played old jazz on loop. They'd spent 2 years together before his last deployment. She'd written him, waited, said she would be there. But he hadn't answered her last 5 letters, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how to explain the man he had become. He wasn't sure he deserved her anymore. And maybe she wasn't waiting anymore. He didn't want her to fix him. He didn't need her to pretend nothing had changed. He just wanted to know if he was still in her heart, even now, with one arm, 1,000-yard stare, and a new silence that followed him everywhere. The goal wasn't reunion. It was redemption. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to be seen again, not pitied, not thanked, just seen. But Caleb couldn't go in, not yet, not with the way she looked so at ease behind the counter, laughing with a man sitting at the far stool. Tall, flannel shirt, easy grin. Maybe just a customer, maybe more. He hated that he didn't know. He hated more that he was afraid to find out. He walked to the alley beside the cafe, leaned against the brick wall, and pulled out a worn envelope from his coat pocket. Her last letter, the one he never answered. The ink was smudged in places, probably from her hands. The words blurred, but one line was still legible. "I don't need perfect. I just need you." He folded it again, slid it back. A sudden gust sent trash skittering across the alley as if urging him forward. But Caleb stayed still, hidden, watching. Over the next few days he returned, always standing across the street at different hours, watching. Emily still worked the early shift. Same walk, same braid tucked over her shoulder. She didn't look sad. She didn't look like she was missing anything. And yet, sometimes, when she stood alone, her shoulders slumped in a way only someone who once held her would notice. One morning, she stepped out back to throw trash, and Caleb panicked, ducking behind a stack of crates. She paused, looked around, tilted her head slightly as if sensing something, then went back inside. His heart beat like it used to on patrol, quiet, but ready to break into a sprint at any second. On the sixth day, just as Caleb turned the corner to leave, he heard a voice behind him. "I see you again, hiding behind that pole. I'm calling the cops." It wasn't Emily. It was Marla, Emily's best friend, the same one who used to tease him mercilessly. She crossed her arms, stepped forward. "You back from war, soldier boy?" He nodded slowly. She stared at the pinned sleeve, then sighed. "She still talks about you, you know." He blinked. "Thinks you're dead, or worse, that you forgot." "I didn't," he said quietly. "Then go in," she said, her voice suddenly softer, or at least let her stop wondering. He looked away. "I don't want her to see me like this." "She already has," Marla whispered, "every morning, in that empty chair by the window." Then she walked away, leaving him frozen. That night, Caleb didn't sleep. He sat at the edge of his childhood bed, staring at the ghost of himself in the mirror. He didn't want to be remembered like this, broken, hesitant. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe he was still chasing the version of himself that had died in the blast. The next morning, he showered, trimmed his beard, and put on the jacket Emily had bought him 2 winters ago. One arm missing now, but the warmth still there. He walked toward Brew and Bloom, not across the street, not in the shadows, through the door, and into the light. The bell above the door jingled. Emily turned and saw him. For a full 5 seconds she didn't move. The coffee pot in her hand tilted slightly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Caleb stood frozen. She looked at the pinned sleeve, then at his face, then she smiled. Soft, disbelieving, but not unkind. But as she stepped forward, the man from the counter, flannel shirt, easy grin, stood too. He put a hand gently on her arm, and Caleb's stomach sank. Maybe he'd waited too long. Maybe war hadn't just taken his arm. Maybe it had taken everything. Emily stepped away from the man. He didn't protest, just nodded slightly and returned to his stool. She came around the counter slowly, like someone moving through a dream. And then, without a word, she stood in front of Caleb, eyes glistening. He tried to speak. I didn't know if I should come." "I didn't know if you were alive," she whispered, her voice trembling. Caleb looked down. "I didn't want you to see what was left." She reached up, touched the edge of his collar near the missing sleeve. "I wrote to you. For months." "I read them. Every one." "Why didn't you write back?" He swallowed. "Because I didn't think I was the man you remembered." Emily smiled through tears. "I wasn't waiting for the man I remembered, Caleb. I was waiting for the one I loved." She led him to the same corner table where they had once scribbled dreams on napkins. Customers pretended not to watch, but the room felt different, warmer. Emily sat across from him, fingers grazing his. He hesitated, then removed the glove from his left hand, the one that remained. She didn't flinch, She just took it in both of hers. And he exhaled, really exhaled, for the first time since the desert. "I'm scared," he admitted. "So am I," she said. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." That afternoon, they walked out together, not as they were, but as who they had become. People turned to look, not at the missing arm, but at the way Emily looked at him, like nothing was missing at all. Weeks later, Caleb returned again, not alone this time. He walked beside her, sleeve still empty, heart finally full. They say war takes many things, limbs, sleep, years, but it doesn't have to take love, not if you fight to hold on. Caleb Ross still walks Main Street, still wears the old jacket, but now there's a patch sewn where the sleeve used to hang, still standing. Because some men return from war missing a piece of themselves, but sometimes what waits for them is everything they didn't know they still had. If you believe love survives the battles we never talk about, type "still standing" in the comments, hit like, and subscribe to Veterans and Heroes Stories, where quiet returns still echo the loudest.